What sucks about being a man? My wife is violent and vindictive. A number of years ago, she attacked me in our living room. I was holding our toddler at the time. The baby was in the crib. In the heat of the moment, I just walked away. I took the toddler with me, got in the car, and drove to another state to stay with my dad for a few days so I could be in a safe space for me and my son, get some advice, and sort out the next step. My wife called the police and filed a report that I had attacked her, stolen our car, and kidnapped her son. I received a call from the police asking for my version of the story. I told them everything in detail, just as it had occurred. I was told I should return to New York immediately and check in with the local detective assigned to the case. I did as I was told, was arrested, spent the night in a jail cell, and was arraigned the next morning and charged with domestic violence. After posting bail, I returned to my dad's house while I searched for a new place to live and continued to try to sort out the next step in this new nightmare. A trial date was set, but in the meantime, I had no visitation rights with my children. A restraining order was placed against me, and I was not allowed to return home to get my things, my medical equipment. I had to recreate myself from scratch as an adult. Buy a new wardrobe, find an apartment on my own, set up new bank accounts, figure out how to get my mail. All kinds of stuff you don't even think about until you've essentially been thrown out on the street while awaiting a sentence. I was mandated to attend a domestic violence class on a weekly basis. The class was extremely strict. No missed classes, no late arrival, a steep cash payment upon the beginning of each class, and weekly attendance for at least 1 year or more, according to a decision by the court. The class was held in an inconvenient location at the edge of town, accessible by a lone bus route that involved hours of my time to travel there and the constant fear that I would not arrive on time. In the class, we were treated to anecdotes about acts of violence committed by men against their female, significant others. Domestic violence, according to the instructor of this course, was an act of violence committed by a man against his female partner. Only men can commit an act of domestic violence, and only against a woman. My wife's attack against me and the son I held in my arms would not qualify as an act of domestic violence. By this definition, we were not allowed to question this definition, or else we would be dismissed from the class as having been disrespectful. If we asked about a situation similar to mine, where the woman attacked the man with or without provocation, we were called out for blaming the victim and threatened with dismissal. I suffered through this indoctrination for over 14 months. My wife sued for child support, so my salary was garnished under the assumption that I was not responsible enough to make payments on my own. After the automatic deduction, I barely had enough to survive. I did not have enough for my insulin co-pays, food, rent, travel money, etc., nor the required fee for my domestic violence course. So I made whatever choices I had to try to keep going. Sometimes I went without my medication. At one point, I was so broke I couldn't afford to attend the domestic violence course, so I missed one and got kicked out. At my next court appearance, the judge threatened me with jail time if I did not resume. So I stopped taking my medication and started eating one small meal per day to try to keep my blood sugars in the safe range. I sued for visitation rights with my kids and won a couple of hours every other Saturday between the time the initial incident took place and the first time after that. I saw my baby. He had taken his first steps, had his first birthday, and was speaking his first words. I had missed all of it. Most weeks when I arrived to pick up my kids, my wife would be out or she would pretend not to be home. So I didn't get to actually spend much time with my kids. Despite the court order, I went to the police station to complain, but they told me to bring it up at our next court date and let it go at that. Once when I arrived to get the boys, she stood in the doorway screaming profanities at me in front of the neighbors and my children, refusing to let me take them out as planned. She kicked me hard, so I called the police. Several cars arrived, and despite the fact that there were witnesses, I was told to walk it off and try again the following week. Well, that didn't really work for me the year before, but I did as I was told and left the scene. I'm not a poor me kind of guy. I fought this whole charade as hard as I could. I talked to lawyers, joined a men's advocacy support group, and told everyone I could about the injustices that were taking place. One lawyer literally said, "I wish you could afford to hire me. I'd love to win this case in court eventually." I had my day in court. My lawyer said, "Plead guilty and take the punishment. You cannot win this. And if you plead not guilty and lose, the consequences will be far, far worse." I wrestled hard with the choice, but I eventually took his advice. I pleaded guilty to menacing in the 3rd degree and was mandated to take the domestic violence class for 1 more year. And nothing really changed except that I had to make a couple more court appearances to follow up with my attendance at the class. From then on, my life was ruined. Getting and holding down a job is tough, but I'm optimistic for the future. A few days after my last court appearance, I got another summons. By then, I no longer expected anything good from that building. They told me to show up with an attorney or a public defender, and the pit in my stomach told me this wasn't over. Not even close. When I stepped into that cold courtroom, filled with people who wouldn't even look me in the eyes, I was informed that in addition to the mandatory domestic violence course, I would now be required to wear an electronic ankle monitor and would be subject to a new restraining order filed by my ex-wife. The ankle monitor was a thick, plastic device strapped to my left ankle. It had a heavy, uncomfortable GPS sensor that sent my location in real time to the system. I wasn't allowed to enter certain areas, especially near her home, even if I just wanted to try to see my kids or if one of them had an emergency. If I accidentally stepped into a restricted zone, an alarm would go off and a patrol car would be dispatched. It was basically house arrest with just enough freedom to work and try to stay alive. Beyond the physical discomfort, there was the shame. On the bus, at job interviews, even at the corner store, no one saw a struggling father or a wrongly accused man. To them, I was just another abuser on parole, just another criminal tracked by the system. Meanwhile, she was starting a new life. People told me there was already a new man living with her. A younger guy, blasting loud music from his car and acting like a neighborhood king. I saw a photo going around, her, him, and my children at a park. Like I never existed. Like I was dead. Like those were his kids now. During the day, I worked at a warehouse. It was hard labor, hauling boxes, cleaning up, doing whatever they needed. It wasn't stable work. I got paid by the day. If I didn't show up, I didn't get paid. Child support was deducted automatically, and even then, I made sure to give more. I bought a box of candy, gum, lollipops, small chocolate bars, in bulk, and started selling them at traffic lights at night. I stood on street corners late into the evening, still wearing my sweaty work uniform, a bag of sweets slung over my shoulder. I didn't do it because the court ordered me to. I did it because I couldn't bear the thought of my kids needing something and not having it. I grew up with nothing. I knew what that felt like. I didn't want that for them. I've been ignored, insulted, rained on. I've had people roll their windows up like I was dirt. And that's fine. Because at the end of the month, when I could buy my son that new notebook he wanted, or the shoes my daughter needed for school, I knew I was doing my part. Even if nobody else cared. They never went without. While she was taking selfies at the mall with her new man, I was waking up at 4 a.m. to walk miles to find a day's labor. While she went out for dinner, I was under the sun selling candy at red lights, counting coins with pride, not pity. Once, my ankle monitor went off because I unknowingly dropped off a resume at a call center located within a restricted zone. Within minutes, patrol cars showed up. They pulled me out of the line in front of everyone and explained loudly that I wasn't allowed to be there. I was kicked out in front of people who would never forget my face. That night, I cried. Not because I felt sorry for myself, but because no matter how hard I tried to do the right thing, the system dragged me down. Because while she lived like a sainted victim, I was the villain in the eyes of everyone. And still, when I lay down to sleep, all I could think about was whether my kids had eaten, if they brushed their teeth, if they were sleeping peacefully, if they missed me. Because the real prison wasn't the ankle monitor. It was knowing the truth had been buried, that I had been condemned for loving too much. And no one cared. I had been feeling it for weeks. Something wasn't right. My kids were different. On the rare, tightly controlled visits the court allowed me, they didn't look me in the eyes the same way. My daughter, who used to run into my arms and chatter about school and cartoons, now barely spoke. My son clung to me and cried more than he used to laugh. And the smell, their clothes were dirty, their hair unwashed. The spark in their eyes was dimming. Then one day, while I was selling candy in an intersection, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and it was the neighbor from my ex-wife's apartment building, an older woman who had always been kind to my kids. Her voice was trembling. "Sweetheart, I don't want to meddle, but I think you should know. Your ex left this morning with that new guy. Dressed up, purse in hand, laughing, music blasting from his car. And she left the kids home. Alone. They've been crying for hours." My body went cold. I stood there, phone to my ear, frozen in place. "You're sure?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I saw her leave with my own eyes, and I've been hearing the little ones crying through the walls. I knocked and called. No one answered. They're alone. I looked down at the ankle monitor on my leg. I knew exactly what going over there would mean. It would trigger the GPS boundary alert. The cops would come. I'd be arrested for violating the protective order. But what if something happened? What if they tried to cook something and got burned? What if they fell, choked, got hurt? What if she never came back? I gave my bag of candy to another vendor and ran to the nearest bus stop. I texted my lawyer during the ride, voice shaking. I sent him a voice memo explaining everything. What the neighbors said, that I was going there, that I couldn't risk waiting while my kids were in danger. When I got there, I didn't hesitate. I ran up the stairs and banged on the door. No answer. I kept knocking until I heard it. Tiny footsteps and a small voice. Daddy. Yes, baby, it's me. Open the door. The door opened. My knees buckled. The apartment was filthy. Trash on the floor. Food rotting in the sink. My daughter was barefoot, still wearing the same clothes from our last visit. Her hair was tangled. My son had tear stains on his cheeks. They threw themselves into my arms, sobbing. Did you eat anything? I asked. Just bread, but there's no more, my daughter whispered. The fridge was practically empty. A couple of beers, an open soda bottle. No food, no water. I started filming everything. My kids, the state of the apartment, the empty fridge, the clock on the wall, the front door. I made sure to capture my ankle monitor on camera. I sent everything to my lawyer. Photos, videos, a panicked voice note, and then the ankle monitor beeped. That sharp, horrible sound that meant I had crossed the boundary. Minutes later, the doorbell rang. 3 officers. Tense, hand on holster. Sir, you're violating the restraining order. You need to come with us. They were alone. I shouted. No food. No supervision. They've been crying for hours. I showed them the video. One of them watched. I could see the discomfort in his face. But they had orders. Protocol. And that was all that mattered. They handcuffed me in front of my children. My daughter screamed and held onto my leg. My son wailed like his heart was breaking. Daddy, no. Please don't go. And I cried too. Not for the cuffs. Not for the arrest. But because I was being dragged away, again, while the real danger, the woman who left her babies alone to party with her new boyfriend, was out there, laughing free. In the holding cell that night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat on a cold concrete bench, the air damp, the silence loud. I kept thinking, did they eat after I left? Did someone hold them? Did they cry themselves to sleep? The bars weren't the prison. The real prison was knowing that I, a father who did everything, worked, paid support, sold candy on the street to give them a better life, was in here, while the woman who abandoned her own children went untouched. Because being a father, no matter how good, means nothing in a system that's blind. Because loving too much as a man is a crime. No one had prepared me for this. After spending another night in that cold, damp cell, I'd stopped hoping for anything good. I was numb, emotionally gutted, barely functioning. My spirit was hanging by a thread. I felt like I'd lost everything, my dignity, my rights, my voice. But that morning, my lawyer showed up looking different. Tired, yes, his tie crooked, eyes dark with fatigue, but there was something new in his expression. A flicker of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Determination. We got everything, he said. The footage, the audio messages, the neighbor's statement. I filed a claim against her for child endangerment this morning. I nodded, still cautious, still afraid to believe. The days that followed felt like years. Social services launched their investigation. The neighbor agreed to testify and provide a written statement. The videos were reviewed. The living conditions, the timeline, her repeated absences, it all painted a picture that couldn't be ignored anymore. And then the unthinkable happened. My lawyer received a call. He looked stunned when he told me. She's backing down. I froze. What do you mean? She's saying she can't afford to take care of the kids anymore. Says she's overwhelmed, broke, and wants to start a new life with her boyfriend. She's offering to give you full custody. The room spun around me. I had to sit down. She also wants to withdraw all charges. The domestic violence accusations, the violation of the restraining order, all of it. She wants it gone. I blinked, trying to process it. After all this, after everything, she was handing them over? She's really giving them up? I asked. She says it's for the best. And frankly, I agree. I didn't hesitate. I accept. My voice cracked. But this time not from pain. From release. From the weight lifting off my chest after so long. Within days, things started moving fast. Social workers came to inspect my place. It was small, just a room in a shared apartment. But I'd made it a home. With help from a local support group for single dads, I'd managed to buy 2 small beds, fresh linens, a little shelf with books and toys, and even a foldable table for homework. I was ready. When the decision came down from the court, it was almost surreal. Full custody granted to the father. Charges dismissed. Ankle monitor removed. Record under review for expungement. The day I went to pick up my children, I stood outside her building, heart pounding. She came down with them in one suitcase. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She didn't say much. They're yours now, she said, adjusting her sunglasses. I'm moving in with Gabriel. I hope someday they'll understand. She kissed each of them on the forehead, turned, and walked away without looking back. I didn't respond. I just knelt down and hugged my children like I hadn't seen them in years. Because in many ways, I hadn't. I buckled them into the back seat of the taxi. My daughter looked up at me, a little nervous, unsure. Are we going home, Daddy? I smiled, eyes burning. Yes, sweetheart. This time, for real. As the car pulled away, my son leaned against me and fell asleep, his tiny hand clinging to my shirt. My daughter stared out the window, quietly holding my hand. And I cried. Not because I was hurt, not because I was broken, but because for the first time in so long, I felt whole. I had lost everything, but I got them back. And now, we were finally going home. Life had changed. I had changed. Not overnight, but slowly, through every tear, every sleepless night, every hard-earned coin, I built something real. Something mine. I wasn't the man I used to be. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. My kids were thriving. They laughed at breakfast, argued about cartoons, and fell asleep safe, full, and loved. My past didn't define me anymore. My effort did. My bakery, once a tiny dream, had become a neighborhood staple. People lined up for my cakes and pastries. I had regular clients. I catered for events, schools, offices. I had respect, a reputation, a bank account that stayed in the green. I could afford school supplies, doctor visits, even a little trip to the park without counting coins. My kids? They were proud of me, and I was proud of them. Every single day. And then, she came back. It was a quiet afternoon. I was decorating a cake for a boy's birthday party when I heard the bell. I looked up and froze. Her. She walked in like nothing had ever happened. Heels. Hair done. Designer bag. The same detached, cold expression she always had when she wanted something. She scanned the bakery and gave a fake smile. Is all this yours? Every inch. Built with what I had left after you destroyed everything. I said calm but firm. I came to talk about the kids. I stared at her. The same kids you abandoned? She ignored it. I want custody. I laughed. Not out of amusement. Out of disbelief. Let me get this straight. You walked out. Disappeared. Left them alone. I raised them. I changed diapers, made rice and beans with pennies, sold candy at stoplights, cried myself to sleep, and held their hands through every fever. And now that I'm finally doing okay, now that the bakery's running, the bills are paid, the kids are healthy, you come back and say, I want custody? She shrugged. I'm their mother. No, you were their mother. You forfeited that title when you left them for a man with loud music and no interest in your kids. She didn't answer, just turned around and walked out. The next day, I was served. She filed a legal petition for shared custody. She claimed she was emotionally and financially stable, and that the children deserved to reconnect with their mother. I went straight to my lawyer, the man who had fought with me from day one. When he read the papers, he clenched his jaw and slammed the file shut. No, 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 no. Not after everything you've been through. She's not walking back and like nothing happened. Not this time. I'm going to make sure the judge sees her for who she really is. The court date arrived. She showed up in white, playing the part of the remorseful mother. Her lawyer handed out photos, staged, outdated, polished images that had no connection to reality. Her attorney painted her as a woman who'd made mistakes, but who now wanted to rebuild the maternal bond. Then my lawyer stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were sharp, calm, and loaded with fire. Your Honor, I have one simple question. Where was this mother when her children were crying with hunger? The room went silent. Where was she when my client was handcuffed for entering his own home to save those children? Where was she when he sold candy at intersections to buy formula and school shoes? We worked 3 jobs just to afford notebooks. We held those kids every night and reminded them they were safe. The judge leaned forward slightly. Ma'am, he said, turning to her, you voluntarily signed over custody 2 years ago. Correct. Yes, but I was going through a hard time. And during that time, did you ever attempt to contact your children? Send a birthday card? Call? Ask how they were? No, but... And now, conveniently, after your relationship ends and you find yourself alone and struggling, you suddenly remember you have children and want them back, with a child support claim on top of it. She went silent. My lawyer continued. Your Honor, this isn't about love. This is about losing control. She's not here because she wants to care for them. She's here because she wants to undo the consequences of her own abandonment. Meanwhile, my client, he stayed. He fed them. He healed them. He never left. The judge folded his hands together, clearly upset. Ms. Aim, this court doesn't exist to fix your mistakes when it's convenient for you. The children have stability. They have safety. They have love. You don't get to abandon them for years in return just because your boyfriend did the same to you. Her attorney tried to speak, but the judge shut it down. No further arguments. Custody remains solely with the father. This request is denied. Future attempts to disrupt these children's lives without substantial evidence will be viewed as emotional manipulation. Gavel. Done. I didn't cry in court. I sat still, breathing hard. But inside, I was falling apart from relief. That night, I picked up my kid from school like any other day. I didn't tell them what happened. I just hugged them tighter. They didn't know what was said in that courtroom, but they felt the truth every day. They saw it in packed lunches, in bedtime stories, in the warmth of a home built on love. And for once, the law had seen it too. She couldn't handle it. Of course not. People like her don't accept defeat, especially when it means losing control. She didn't want the kids back because she missed them. She wanted them because I had risen, because I had built something without her, because I was happy, stable, and that made her furious. After the judge shut down her custody request and called out her motives in front of everyone, she stormed out of court without a word. But I saw in her face rage. Cold, calculating rage. I knew something was coming. I could feel it in my gut. The quiet after the storm wasn't peace. It was a pause, the kind you get before something explodes. 3 days later, she showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning. I was making pancakes with the kids. My daughter was excited to flip them herself, and my son was in the living room laughing at cartoons. It was a perfect, peaceful morning. And then there was a knock. Hard, deliberate. 3 quick thuds. I opened the door, and there she was. Eyes red, hair messy, but that same vacant expression, like someone who had nothing left to lose. My stomach dropped. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my pocket, hit record on my phone, and slid it back silently. I want to see my kids, she said. They're mine too. You can't keep them from me. I'm not keeping them from you. I replied calmly. The court is. You know why. She tried to look past me, into the house, like she could push her presence in without moving. Please leave. If you want to talk, go through the lawyer. Then she exploded. You're threatening me, she yelled suddenly loudly. You're threatening me. The kids heard her. My daughter peeked around the corner, confused. My son froze where he stood. That's when it happened. She took 2 steps back, took a deep breath, and started hitting herself. Yes, right there, in front of my door, in front of the kids. She slapped her own face hard, then threw herself against the wall, dropped to the ground, and started screaming like she was being attacked. Help! Help! He's hitting me. He attacked me in front of the kids. My heart stopped. My daughter started crying. My son ran to me, terrified. I stood frozen for a second, trying to process what I was witnessing. Stop it. Are you insane? The kids are watching. What the hell are you doing? She didn't stop. She banged her head lightly against the wall, scratched her arm, screamed louder. Neighbors opened doors. Some recorded. And then, sirens. 2 police cars pulled up. Officers rushed in. She ran to them, sobbing, hysterical, pointing at me. He hit me. He threw me on the ground. Please, arrest him. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just pulled my phone out of my pocket and handed it to the officer. Everything's recorded. From the moment I opened the door. Play it. And please get a child. My kids witnessed all of this. The officers, who were already reaching for cuffs, paused. One of them hit play, and then the truth poured out. Her voice. Calm. Cold. Then her fake screaming. The sound of her slapping herself. Throwing herself on the floor. My voice telling her to stop. The kids crying. Me comforting them. The air shifted. The officer's faces changed. She tried to backpedal. I was overwhelmed. I didn't mean. I just wanted to see them. Too late. She was arrested on the spot. Charged with filing a false report, disturbing the peace, and emotional abuse witnessed by minors. For the first time, she faced consequences. I stood there, holding my kids as they put her in the back of the squad car. I didn't celebrate. I didn't shout. But inside, something finally broke free. As I closed the door and knelt to hug my kids, my daughter whispered, Daddy, why did you do that? I pulled both of them close. Because some people think love means ownership. But you're not something to be owned. You're my everything. And I'll protect you. Always. That night, we all slept in the same bed. No fear. No noise. No threats. Just peace. And as I stared at the ceiling, my arm around my kids, I realized something. The nightmare was over. I'll never forget the first time I saw something like what happened to me. wasn't even my story, not first. I was at home, late at night, flipping through channels when a news report caught my attention. There was grainy cell phone footage playing. A woman screaming in the middle of the street, pointing at a man who was running away. She was yelling, "Thief! He stole from me! Help!" And people believed her. They didn't hesitate. Strangers tackled him, kicked him. One man hit him with a pipe. The guy was curled up on the ground, bloody, begging for them to stop. He wasn't a thief. He was her boyfriend. He hadn't stolen anything. He was trying to get away from her after she had hit him during a fight at home. He just wanted to leave. But she knew one thing. She knew exactly what to say to make the world turn against him in seconds. And they did. At the time, before my own life unraveled, I thought maybe it was just one of those crazy stories. An exception. I thought surely the justice system wouldn't fall for something like that again. How naive I was. Because now I know. Now I know what it's like to be on the other side. To be the man who's afraid to defend himself because raising your voice gets you labeled violent. To be the father who's arrested for trying to protect his kids. To be the one who has to prove he didn't do something that never happened, all because someone else said you did. And the worst part? There are women who know exactly how to weaponize that system. It's not a mistake. It's not confusion. It's not fear. It's strategy. I've lived it. I survived it. I was nearly destroyed by it. She left me, left the kids, walked away without a backward glance. And the moment I got on my feet, the moment I built something with my own blood and bones, she came back, not with love or remorse, but with entitlement. She made a scene in my store. She tried to take the kids from the only stable home they'd ever had. She lied to a courtroom. When that didn't work, she showed up at my house, beat herself in front of my children, and screamed that I hit her. She was ready to send me back to prison, just because I said no. What if I hadn't recorded it? What if my kids hadn't been there? What if the cops had believed her, like they almost did? I'd have lost everything. Again. And she would have walked away, smirking, saying he deserved it. There's a dark side to this world that people don't want to talk about. They'll tell you men have all the power, that the system favors us. But when a man is falsely accused by a woman, that power evaporates in an instant. Because her word, just her word, can become a sentence. Yes, women suffer. Yes, abuse exists. And it's horrible and real. But so is this. Some women lie. And they do it because they know they'll be believed. They cry on cue. They scratch their arms. They throw themselves to the floor and scream. They use the language of real victims to destroy men they can't control. And every time they do it, they hurt the women who are truly suffering. They silence the ones who need help. They make the world stop listening. And no one talks about it. No one was there when I was locked in a jail cell with barely enough money to buy insulin. No one knocked on my door to ask if I was okay when I lost my home. No one came to see my kids when they cried for their mom and couldn't understand why she left. Because I'm a man, and men are expected to shut up and endure it. Well, not me. Not anymore. I'm speaking up. Because if I don't, no one will. My son will grow up knowing what happened. He'll know that his father stayed, fought, protected, even when the world called him a criminal. And my daughter? She'll grow up knowing that manipulation is not power. That lying to get what you want isn't strength. It's cowardice. Justice should protect the innocent, not the loudest. Because when only one side is believed, the other is condemned before he even opens his mouth.